Years ago that our very first Electron rocket was ready on the pad at RocketLab Launch Complex 1, waiting to make its debut launch to space. And standing in its place now is our 50th Electron rocket, ready to make its way to low Earth orbit in just 40 minutes or so. Hello, I'm Muriel Baker, and today I am joining you live from inside our Mission Control Center as we celebrate our 50th liftoff with the very people who design, build, test, and launch our Electron rocket. Bonjour aussi et bienvenue to our launch customer today, Kines, an Internet of Things company from France. Today's mission is called Time Toulouse, in a nod to the name of their home city. And liftoff this morning is set for just after 6 a.m., 6:13 local time and 6:13 UTC. This mission is a special one for our team as it's our 50th Electron launch since our very first mission in May 2017. Now, Electron has been a record-breaking rocket since its debut by being the world's first carbon composite orbital rocket, as well as the first rocket powered by 3D printed engines and electric pumps instead of traditional gas turbines. And with this 50th liftoff, we are set to break another record because Electron has reached 50 launches faster than any other commercially developed rocket in history. A huge achievement for our team that is testament to their dedication and tenaciousness in making dedicated, responsive access to orbit a reality for small satellites. And here to tell us more about the milestones along the way to 50 launches are my colleagues Prachi and Jamie.
Thanks, Muriel, and thank you all for joining us today. My name is Prachi Saknani.
And I'm Jamie Gilbert. It's great to be here on this really exciting morning for Electron and the whole RocketLab team.
Some days it feels like we've blinked and now we're at 50 launches, but the reality is we've packed a whole lot of complex missions, engineering evolution, and exciting achievements into these 7 years since Electron first took to the skies.
That's right, and we could tell you more, but we're going to go one better and show you instead.
So I started RocketLab in 2007 with one goal in mind, and that was to make space more accessible and more affordable for everybody.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of the 50th Electron rocket launching from Mahia Peninsula in just over 38 minutes. RocketLab going live a little bit earlier than normal to celebrate today's historic mission, the 50th flight of Electron from all three of their launch complexes. A huge milestone, being the first company to reach 50 flights in that 7-year time span. And at the current rate, the only one that might try to beat that is Starship, so we'll have to wait and see, but a huge day to celebrate for RocketLab. If it's your first time here, though, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at the Launchpad, and here at TOP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us live here. As always, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'll do some shoutouts there, and if you have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we will work on answering those live as we continue to count down 37 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting till this historic flight. RocketLab not only going for a historic flight here today, but having signed recently a historic deal for 10 rocket launches from the Japanese company just a couple of days ago. You can see that article over on our website. So RocketLab continuing to push forward, becoming a huge competitor and player in the commercial space launch industry. Lots of people are just tuning in. It's great to have you all joining us here as we continue to count down to launch today's mission, Time Toulouse, as we said, the 50th mission. It is carrying the first batch of 5 satellites for the French Kinis IoT constellation, which is designed to operate with 25 nanosatellites that each are 30 kilograms in weight. The constellation will enable Kinis, a company backed by private and public investors, including the French government space agency CNES, an international space-based solution provider, to improve its global IoT connectivity. We're starting to see a lot more of these IoT constellations and systems coming online over the last couple of years and continuing into the future. If you're just joining us, we are L-36 minutes and counting. Let's listen back in to RocketLab Mission Control.
The past 49 Electron launches, and we're excited to continue that today with number 50.
Now, before we get into the details for today's payload, it is time to check in with our operators on console and mission control for one of the final pre-launch polls. This is where our launch director will poll each of the operators to understand the status of their critical systems, including weather, avionics, guidance, range clearance, and more. If the operators confirm that their systems are green tracking green, this means they're in good shape for liftoff and everything is operating as planned. Let's listen in for those calls.
All stations LD on mission, proceeding with the status poll for launch sequence. Standby for poll for current and expected status for launch. Report green or red, tracking green or red for launch. Stage.
Stage is green, tracking green.
Avionics.
Avionics is green, tracking green.
GNC.
GNC is green, tracking green.
VCON.
VCON is green, tracking green.
T1.
T1 is green, tracking green.
GC.
GC is green, tracking green.
PLS.
PLS is green, tracking green.
RSO.
RSO is green, tracking green.
MET.
MET is green, tracking green.
MM.
MM is green, tracking green.
All right, thank you all. And MET, LD on mission.
MET.
Can you please provide a weather brief for T0?
Okay, so that shower we've been monitoring on the radar continues to move towards LC1, but it is weakening and the leading edge is dissipating. So we're looking at even later, more like 6:30 before it starts to affect LC1. POV remains 30%.
Copy, thank you, Matt. And T1 LD mission.
That's greens all across the board there, confirmed by launch director Michael Pearson. Today's launch is a special one for all of us, but especially for Michael, as it's his 50th launch on console. While we have a bunch of folks who have been on board with us since Flight 1, Michael is the only operator to have been on console for every single launch.
The launch director role is absolutely critical on launch day because the person in that seat needs to ensure that all teams remain on track for an on-time liftoff. They are constantly checking in with operators to confirm their critical tasks have been completed and then making decisions based on inputs from the team and a bunch of sensors too. And if any issues do crop up, they're charged with leading troubleshooting efforts and working them through to resolution before liftoff. So it's a big task, but Michael makes it look easy. But enough about the team on Earth. What are we sending to space today? Well, inside Electron's fairing, patiently awaiting their ride to orbit, are 5 satellites for French company Kinéis, who specialize in Internet of Things technology, or IoT. It's the first of 5 dedicated Electron launches booked by Kinéis to deploy their complete constellation of 25 satellites. What this constellation aims to do is connect IoT-enabled devices anywhere in the world and enable them to transmit data to users in near real time. Each of the satellites is what we call a 16U platform, so a bit bigger than a toaster, plus a cool antenna too, which weighs around 30 kilograms. And this means the total payload mass for today's Electron launch is around 150 kilograms, or about 308 pounds. So let's hear more from the team at Kinéis.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are counting down 31 minutes, 2 seconds and counting to the liftoff of the 50th Electron mission. We're continuing to monitor all of the conditions down on the site there. You did hear that they're monitoring some rain conditions approaching the launch complex, and while they run through this video with some beautiful copyrighted music, we're going to take a live look at the radar weather conditions over the next hour or so here. This is the conditions around the launch site in the last, this was taken just about 3 minutes ago, this tracking, and then we can take a look here leading up towards when we are expecting that liftoff time, which is 30 minutes from now. This is the forecast at that 30-minute mark. So you can see it's very slowly moving, but it is in the area. If we take a look back at how it's been moving around the region, there we go. It's just loading here. Only got a couple of images there that are strong weather radars, but you can see those weather conditions down in the region, and they're continuing to monitor those as they prepare for launch here today. They're launching from the very bottom tip of this kind of peninsula. That is the Mahia Peninsula, where the launch site is, and that's where we are going to continue to monitor the weather and the rain conditions as they continue there. Looking towards the rain and thunder, it is showing that there is some in that region. Taking a look at the wind conditions, because that is something we also need to monitor. Seeing 4-knot winds to the east, so nothing too bad there. Their biggest concern right now is monitoring the rain that is approaching the site, which sounds like it's going to come in just a little bit earlier maybe, so that we might see some rain on the cameras before flight, but we'll be keeping a close eye on that. Let's listen back into Mission Control.
To hear about what that first launch felt like, but also what has changed since.
I've been on console for every single launch since Flight 1. I don't know if that means I'm crazy or what, but I mean, how can you miss them?
RocketLab, I think, is going to be playing a lot of videos today with some beautiful music, so if you want to hear those, definitely head on over, check out RocketLab's official broadcast there. T-minus 28 minutes, 30 seconds, and counting until today's historic flight. We're continuing to monitor those weather conditions, but if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those. That is a video view inside the launch control during the first flight. It's amazing to see how far RocketLab has come. Now knowing what launch control looks like, I'm sure they'll show a picture here. They're also hosting today's broadcast from within it. Amazing to see these systems grow and develop as RocketLab has grown, and here we are. It's only been 7 years, but we're here for the 50th flight of Electron, and we are going to see many more, and then we will see Neutron as well. T-minus 27 minutes, 44 seconds and counting till launch. Nine Central, does the copyright music affect their playing? Yes. So even if they have a license to stream that music, we do not. So that's why we have to mute the audio, unfortunately. Unfortunately, there's a few launch providers out there that like to play copyrighted music on everything, which makes it a little bit more difficult. And the Mahia Peninsula is not an easy place for us to send our rocket chasers. So we are working on it. But the countdown in the top right corner is counting down to launch. T-minus 27 minutes, 5 seconds, and counting. On the left side of your screen is a live view of the launch complex, where teams are counting down to today's flight. We'll try to keep that full screen as much as we can through the countdown sequence here today. Teams continuing to monitor those weather conditions. On board are the first 5 for this new constellation of IoT satellites that will be heading up to orbit here today, which means we've got 4 more of these missions. So there'll be a lot more Electrons this year and going into the future, while teams continue to also work on bringing the Neutron launch vehicle online as well. I'm sure we'll get an update on that while we continue to stay live. We'll bring that rocket camera full screen here. as a live view of Launch Complex 1B at the Mahia Peninsula, where Electron is vertical, and you can see those white stripes. Electron's everyone's favorite black rocket, but it is all white because it is fueled up. Teams are just going through the final fueling procedures as they prepare for launch in just under 26 minutes. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to join us. It helps us out. We're answering your comments and questions. If you like what we do here, also take a moment, consider hitting that join button here at the launch pad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And by hitting that join button, your name turns green and you get that TLP helmet next to your name that changes colors the longer that you are a member. And we really do appreciate that support. That helps us expand our coverage to bring even better coverage of everything space from around the world as we work to expand our team. If you happen to be down on New Zealand and are interested in becoming a rocket chaser, or you're anywhere in the world and want to join the TLP crew, also take a moment, consider filling in a TLP application. We'll drop the link in the chat. Interviews are underway, so make sure you stay tuned for contacting your email for if you are invited to one of those. We're playing some catch up on those as we had a lot of interest our last couple of weeks. We appreciate that and excited to welcome some more of you onto the TLP crew as launch commentators, moderators, rocket chasers, and journalists as we launch our new TLPnetwork.com news website. If you want to stay up to date on the latest launches, you can head over to tlpnetwork.com/launches. That's where you can find an up-to-date launch calendar, so you can stay up to date on when you will see launches there. We also work to have our live streams always scheduled in there, so you know if we're going to have live coverage or not as well. L- 24 minutes, 15 seconds, and counting till launch.
Now, clearly, there has been a lot of hard work and dedication from a lot of people to make it to today's 50th launch. And another early Rocket Lab employee is Dr. George Buchanan, who has been part of Rocket Lab's guidance, navigation, and control team since before Flight 1. Good morning, George.
Well, so I'm George Buchanan, and yeah, I'm head of the guidance, navigation, and control team these days for Neutron. So I started off in Electron. Before Flight 1, I was doing things like figuring out how many engines we should have. And these days I'm in Neutron and doing almost exactly the same thing again.
And how do you feel on today's launch of the 50th
Oh, there's good
Electron?
energy today. We've got so many people back here, but I'm still pretty nervous, to be honest. That hasn't gone away since Flight 1. The reason's changed, of course. Flight 1, I was really nervous because I didn't know if it was even going to go in the right direction. These days I'm nervous because the customers place so much trust and so much value in what we do. And so some of the payloads we're doing are really impactful to the world, and even if they're sort of part of a constellation, everyone's had so much effort poured into it. And so the customers deliver it to us, and basically after that it's fully on us to make sure it ends up in the right orbit. So it's a lot of responsibility, and I still feel that little sort of twinge of nerves and like, let's do this, let's prove why we're sort of one of the leading companies out there to do this.
If you're feeling those feelings, it means you care, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Now, earlier I mentioned that you are, in fact, an early Rocket Lab employee, and for context for viewers, each member of the team here gets a mission patch number for what time they join the team. We have about 2,000 people now in Rocket Lab, and Sir Peter Beck is mission patch number 1. George, what mission patch are you?
I've been here for 10 years, and I think I'm mission patch 12.
So a very long time you've been here, since before Flight 1, is that correct?
Well before Flight 1.
Yeah, wow. Now, you don't actually work on Electron missions anymore. That's where you started, but you now lead up the GNC team for Neutron, our new rocket. So what are some of the experiences you had with Electron that have helped prepare you for what you do now on Neutron?
Yeah, I mean, there are quite a few similarities, of course. It's still a rocket, so you still need all the basic algorithms to get it up into orbit. And I guess the new things are twofold. So one of them is the technical side. So Neutron's fully reusable retropropulsive landing, and that's really hard to do. We've seen it happen before, but it's so intricate. There are so many details, and so having a rocket which can fly forwards at sort of subsonic, transonic, supersonic, hypersonic speeds, then flip around, re-enter in exactly the same regimes, it's one of the hardest challenges out there. And so leading one of the teams which is really key to this new functionality is incredibly rewarding, but we're learning a whole bunch as well, of course. And then the second thing is that when we developed Electron, we didn't really know what we were doing. Probably shouldn't say this live, but we were a bunch of pretty young people. We hadn't launched rockets before, and so we developed everything from scratch, which is great because we understand the rockets fully. But of course, now we're doing Neutron, and so we can take all of these lessons and apply them. And so we're doing a few things a little bit differently. It's actually not as different as you'll think. We did really well for Electron, but we can tweak a few little things here and there, make it more efficient, particularly so that we can ramp up and really do a huge number of launches quickly.
Very cool. Do you have to be a mathematics genius to work in GNC?
No, I mean, we're not going to turn anyone away. If you're a mathematic genius, come and join us. But the GNC and flight software teams, we work really closely together. And we've already got a bunch of mathematic geniuses. We're actually a few roles open. Go to the website, have a little look. And sure, you need to be pretty able, but really what we're looking for is some good problem-solving skills, looking for people who are willing to dig into a problem and take ownership of it as well. And then, of course, just being sort of enthusiastic, willing to come in at 5 a.m. for interviews, willing to be on console and launch rockets. You need to be able to pick up anything and run with it.
Now, you're outside of Mission Control today, but you have spent plenty of time in the Mission Control Center on a console before. Do you miss it?
Say again?
Miss it?
Yes and no. I do miss it, particularly when the rocket lifts off and you sort of feel like, I did that. Whereas these days, of course, I'm working on Neutron and we haven't launched yet. That's coming up soon. But then the stress is pretty immense. Being on console is a funny thing because you're sitting there for hours before launch, and half the time you're not doing anything. You're sitting there monitoring everything absolutely carefully, but you're not actually actively doing anything. You're waiting perhaps for the propellants to be loaded. And so you're sitting there in this weird mixture of stress and relaxation. It's very unique.
Well, thank you so much, George, for joining us. And if you are interested in one of the guidance, navigation and control roles at RocketLab, like George did a good pitch for before, then you can come and join us. We have the open roles on our careers page on the RocketLab website for more info.
Sequence. The primary abort switch and watchdog are configured and ready. LD SUP, LD mission.
LD SUP.
Please confirm the secondary abort switch and watchdog are configured and ready.
Can confirm.
Avionics, LD mission.
LD avionics.
Confirm stage 2 umbilical POF is nominal.
Confirmed.
And confirm HVB balancing is disabled.
Confirmed.
ComOps, LD mission.
LD ComOps.
Please confirm video streams are in sync.
And confirm video streams are currently in sync.
A check-in with the countdown clock, and we are just over 17 minutes to liftoff for today's mission. And as we prepare to watch Electron take to the skies for the 50th time, let's take a closer look at our record-breaking rocket.
And if you're just joining us, L-minus 16 minutes, 43 seconds, and counting till the historic 50th launch of the Electron launch vehicle. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live over the next few minutes. But of course, we are going to listen in to Mission Control. They have that final go-no-go to enter terminal count that is scheduled to occur at that T-minus 12-minute mark, so we'll listen into that. Electron here, they're going to run through some of its statistics here, but Electron is powered Electron is a 3-stage launch vehicle. It has no strap-on boosters there, but the vehicle itself stands 18 meters tall. The fairing is 4.05 meters tall with a diameter of 1.2 meters. So this vehicle, when it's on a dolly, can actually be pushed around the factory really by 1 or 2 people. It's amazing the capability of it, but also its size. It provides 224 kilonewtons of liftoff thrust, and the average launch costs $7.5 million. Now, teams are working to make Electron reusable. They have recovered a few. They have flown engines for a second time, but soon they are hoping to refly a booster for the second time and attempt to recover it. That booster is in the warehouse being worked on in preparation for that flight, so Electron will be one of the second vehicles really brought online that is fully the first stage booster would be fully reusable. Now, Neutron, their new launch vehicle, is something that they're designing to be fully reusable, and that'll be amazing to see. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad. Aiden, thank you so much for becoming a suborbital or starbase explorer there. We appreciate that. Let's listen back in to Mission Control.
From Launch Complex 1 on New Zealand's Mahia Peninsula, a launch site we built to enable high-frequency launch made possible by the very limited sea and air traffic around that site. It's the world's first orbital launch site and has played host to 45 of 49 Electron missions to date, with the remaining 4 launches taking place from Launch Complex 2 in Wallops, Virginia.
Now, Launch Complex 1 is our highest volume launch site, largely thanks to that minimal air and sea traffic. But crucially, it launches our Electron rocket and nothing else. But over at the NASA Wallops Flight Facility in Virginia, USA, Electron will soon be sharing turf with Neutron. Now, Neutron will have its own dedicated pad at Wallops called Launch Complex 3. And in recent weeks, we've reached some key milestones in its construction. We've poured concrete for the pad, the water tower for the pad's deluge system is up, and the installation of commodities tanks is underway. And just a couple of miles down the road, the Neutron Assembly and Integration Complex is taking shape, and this will be Neutron's final stop before it rolls out to the pad for liftoff mid-next year.
We are listening into the ground nets as we await the go, no go to enter terminal count.
T-minus 12 minutes and all eyes are on Electron. We're coming up on one of the final status checks before liftoff, the go, no-go poll from our operators and mission control and range control. We're going to tune into the audio loops now to listen in for the calls and see if we get perfect greens across the board.
All stations LD on mission, proceeding with the go, no go sequence. Stage.
Stage is go.
Avionics.
Avionics is go.
GNC.
GNC is go.
VCon.
VCon is go.
T1.
T1 is go.
GC.
GC is go.
PLS.
PLS is go.
RSO.
RSO is go.
MET.
MET is go.
T1.
LD-T1.
Confirming go or no go for launch.
T1 is go.
MM.
MM is go.
LD SUP.
LD SUP is go.
Okay, all stations, the go, no, go sequence is complete. We are T-minus 11 minutes and 3 seconds and counting. We are go for terminal count auto sequence at T-minus 10 minutes. From this time, the 3-word hold procedure is in effect.
Just the way we like it, greens all around, and we are go for launch. What you heard there was Launch Director Michael Pearson making the call out that we are proceeding with the planned liftoff at 6:13 a.m. local time, now just less than 10 minutes away.
So far, we've heard a lot about Electron, the Kinéis payloads on board today, and the team behind all of our launches, but we haven't heard from the man who started it all. So we caught up with our founder and CEO, Sir Peter Beck, who you may know recently received a knighthood for services to aerospace, business, and education. Let's get his take on the road to 50 launches.
It shouldn't be forgotten that we weren't the preordained winner.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are at L-minus 10 minutes and counting till the historic 50th flight of Electron, well more than 10, as they are continuing to count down there. You heard a good call through the control nets as they went through that final go, no, go there. They are go to enter terminal count and are now in that terminal count for the next 10 minutes now. They're continuing to monitor those weather conditions that are down in the region that were approaching the launch site. At the last weather update we had on the radar, we've been keeping a close eye on it. Looks like they've been kind of keeping at bay, but they will of course be keeping a close eye on those as they continue to count down to launch here today. As always, if you have questions, you can send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad. But as we count down L-minus 9 minutes, 13 seconds and counting, take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from. We'll do some shout outs there. This launch is happening from New Zealand, so it's a bright and early launch time for them. Teams coming in and basically working through the night. Tony's watching from Tucson, Arizona. We got Jimbo in Arkansas. Great to see you there. We've got Dan in Basel, Switzerland. Welcome. Purpa Fur is in Oregon. Great to have you here. We got Scooby-Doo in Cordoba, Argentina. Welcome. Great to have you here. Richard is in San Diego. Berend is in South Africa. A Rainbow is in India. We got Carl in South Carolina. Pictor is in Mexico. We got Andrew on Vancouver Island. And we got Matt in Nebraska. L-minus 8 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Teams are playing through a video from Sir Peter Beck. An amazing honor and achievement for him to have been knighted by His Majesty the King. A couple of weeks ago, we did put an article out on that. If you want to check that out, head over to tlpnetwork.com/news. That's where you can stay up to date on all of the latest news happening in the space industry around the world. And if you're interested in joining our team as a TLP journalist or researcher to help with our mission briefings and historical data systems, you can send in an application. That link is in the chat. Interviews are underway, and we're excited to welcome more of you onto the TLP crew here over the coming weeks. We're going to edit back into the full screen there as they get ready to wrap up this video from Sir Peter Beck as we count down T-minus 7 minutes, 40 seconds, and counting to the 50th Electron mission. On board today is the first of 5 missions for the French Kinéis IoT constellation, which will have a total of 25 nanosatellites. So there are 5 nanosatellites on board. They each weigh 30 kilograms, and they're heading up to a low Earth orbit constellation here today. Looking at orbital launch attempts for the year, can you believe it? We're already at 116 for this year, and we're just coming up to that halfway mark. So we're definitely looking to be into that 200 number. And it'll be exciting to see how much further that gets pushed this year and how many more we see Electron fly this year. This is their 8th mission of 2024 with many more still on the schedule. Let's listen back in to RocketLab Mission Control.
The RocketLab team all around the world.
Absolutely, dream team. Now, if you've been following us for the past 49 missions, you'll know all about Electron and exactly what to expect from today's launch sequence. But if you're joining us for the first time, here is what you need to know. Electron is what's known as a small launch vehicle. It stands at 18 meters or 59 feet tall, and it can lift a payload with a mass of up to around 320 kilos or 705 pounds. Today's payload, though, is around half that mass at 150 kilograms, And the rocket is pretty lightweight too. Electron is the world's first orbital class rocket made from carbon composite material, which is incredibly lightweight for its strength, allowing us to maximize payload capacity, of course, but also giving Electrons their signature black look. Before Electron is fueled, it weighs just 1 ton. But once the tanks are filled with liquid oxygen and kerosene, it weighs more than 12 times that amount. So there you have it, Prachi. Rockets are really just flying fuel tanks with engines to move them in the right direction.
Yeah, pretty simple and very true, Jamie. Speaking of those engines, there are 9 3D printed Rutherford engines on Electron's first stage and a single vacuum optimized Rutherford engine on the second stage. Now, there is a lesser known 11th engine on every Electron launch as well, and it is known as Curie. The small but mighty engine is what enables us to maneuver the kick stage in orbit, including raising and lowering orbits to perfectly position satellites that we carry for deployment. Like many rockets, Electron's stages operate a bit like a relay race. The first stage, the single largest structure of the rocket, carries the mission for the first 2.5 minutes of flight, propelling us to around 80 kilometers in altitude. After that, the first stage separates and falls back to Earth in preparation for the second stage to take over the race. That single Rutherford engine on the second stage then burns bright for another 6.5 minutes, propelling us all the way to an elliptical orbit. And then the final leg of the journey is completed by the kick stage, which circularizes the orbit ahead of payload deployment. So now that you know what to expect, let's watch it all unfold in real time as we enter the final minutes of the count. How are we tracking, Muriel?
Hey Prachi, we are at 4 minutes 36 seconds remaining in the countdown to liftoff for No Time to Lose, and operations are progressing smoothly as we inch closer to engine ignition for today's launch. Now at T-minus 2 minutes, Electron's flight computer will take over the countdown and autonomously run through the final operations. Good oxygen will continue to flow Electron all until T-minus 1 minute and 30 seconds. We hear a call from mission control when that happens, indicating that the lock system is in recirculation. Then after that, we'll hear confirmation that Electron's first and second stages are fully pressurized and ready for launch. Is to listen out for the final 10-second countdown from the launch director. We're going to hand it over now to mission control to listen into that final pre-launch sequence.
All stations LD on mission. From now, there should be no red flags in your critical LCCs. VCON LD mission.
LD VCON.
Lock auto sequence and confirm.
Auto sequence is locked.
Confirm all expected flight computer as-goes are green.
That's confirmed.
Okay, all stations, we are go for auto sequence start at T-minus 2 minutes. LD is go for launch.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here. We're L-2 minutes, 15 seconds and counting to the historic 50th flight of Electron. We're going to listen in to RocketLab Mission Control for the final 2 minutes of the count. But if you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream, invite people to watch history, and let's see that go, no go in the chat. If you want to become access to those custom TLP launch modes, become a member. Starts at 99 cents a month.
Vehicle is fully on internal power.
Listen in to launch
AFTS
control.
is green and enabled for flight.
Lock load is complete. System is in recirculation. Anti-geyser in is disabled.
Stage 1 and Stage 2 tanks are pressed for flight.
High flow engine purge enabled.
T-minus 20 seconds and counting. Ten, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Liftoff.
Beginning pitch over. Stage 1 propulsion
We are
nominal.
on our way to space. Our 50th Electron rocket has taken flight and is headed to orbit carrying 5 satellites for Kinesis. Now up next you'll hear the call out for max Q, or maximum aerodynamic pressure, which is the point in flight when Electron experiences peak structural loads. The GNC operator on console will give us the call that max Q is approaching, and then we'll listen out for confirmation of that.
Max Q. Cleared max Q.
Excellent to have that confirmation that we have passed through max Q. We are now at over 2,000 kilometers an hour in speed and just past 17 kilometers in altitude on our way to orbit for Kinesis. Now next up, there are 3 key events for the mission: main engine cutoff, or MECO, stage separation, and then stage 2 engine ignition. MECO is when all 9 Rutherford engines shut down simultaneously on the first stage to prepare for the next phase in flight. Then after those engines are off, Electron's first and second stages will separate. Stage 1 will return back to Earth, while Stage 2 heads in the opposite direction and onward to orbit. Then the vacuum-optimized Rutherford engine on Electron's second stage will light up to propel the stage for this second phase of flight. Now those 3 events all take place in quick succession over just a few seconds, so let's listen in for the calls.
15 seconds to staging.
Entered burnout detect mode. MECO confirmed. Stage separation confirmed. Stage 2 ignition confirmed.
3 successes and 3 milestones down. That was MECO, stage separation, and second stage engine ignition. We are now more than 2 minutes into flight and on the way to orbit for Kinesis. And up next will be fairing jettison, when Electron's fairing splits in 2 and falls away.
Stage 2 guidance is nominal.
Fairing jettison confirmed.
And that there was the call out for fairing jettison, in which you also saw on your screen, exposing the payload of Kinesis' 5 satellites to space ahead of their deployment. Electron is traveling at over 8,000 kilometers an hour and at an altitude past 126 kilometers. Just a couple more minutes remaining in this second stage burn.
Holding nominal.
We are now at T plus 3 minutes 53 seconds into the mission, now more than 9,000 kilometers in speed, going up to orbit of 635 kilometers. Now, Electron's second stage is moving at more than, like I said, 9,000 kilometers an hour, and we are up past 155 kilometers in altitude as we approach orbital velocity. That sweet spot of balance between moving fast enough to travel around Earth, but not so fast that the satellites escape Earth's gravity altogether. Now, our speed target for payload deployment is at least 28,000 kilometers an hour, so we have a little faster to go just yet. We are still partway through the engine burn on Electron's second stage, and one of the things that sets Electron apart from many other rocket designs is the use of electric pumps in the Rutherford engines. Now, those pumps are powered by batteries, which deplete as the engine draws power throughout the flight. But once we use up all that available energy in one set, we switch to a second set of batteries to complete the mission. And once they're dead, then they're gone, and we lose the batteries to drop the extra weight. Now, this clever little maneuver is referred to as the battery hot swap. Keep an eye on your screen to see those shiny silver batteries eject and fall away, and we should hear the call come from mission control soon.
HVB battery discharge nominal, approaching hot swap in roughly 30 seconds.
Throttling down.
Battery jettison confirmed.
Guidance is nominal, 150 seconds remaining.
There we go, that was battery hot swap for the second stage Rutherford engine. The mission is continuing nominally at more than 16,000 kilometers an hour and now past 204 kilometers in altitude. And up next, we will have the final phase of stage 2 flight, including SECO, or second engine cutoff, which is then followed by kick stage separation. And this is where the kick stage, which is carrying Kinesis satellites, separates from Electron's second stage. No, the final engine cutoff on stage 2 is coming up now, just shy of 9 minutes into the mission. The engine you see on your screen is actually our 499th Rutherford built for an Electron mission, not our 500th engine for our 50th mission like you might expect. And that is because while each Electron features 10 Rutherford engines, 9 on the first stage and 1 on the second stage, we actually recovered and reflew a Rutherford engine on an Electron mission for the first time in 2023. So today instead marks number 499.
Just under a minute.
It is now T plus 8 minutes 22 seconds into the mission, and we are fast approaching second engine cutoff. Now, just before that happens, the Rutherford engine will begin to throttle down in preparation for a complete stop. That milestone is scheduled to take place around 8 minutes 58 seconds into the mission, so let's wait for that confirmation now.
Seco confirmed.
Stage 3 separation confirmed. Nominal transport.
Great news there from Mission Control. The second stage engine has now shut down and the kick stage has separated. And that means Kinesis satellites are on the kick stage for a coast phase around Earth. Now, once it has looped back around, the 3D printed Curie engine on the kick stage will ignite twice to complete some final positioning maneuvers before the 5 satellites are deployed to their 653-kilometer circular orbit. All that remains now is to wait for those final Curie circularization burns scheduled at around T plus 52 minutes. Over to Jamie and Part 2 to tell us what we can expect from that phase of the mission.
Thanks, Muriel. And yes, that's right. We're on the home stretch of our 50th launch. Right now, the kick stage is coasting around Earth in an elliptical orbit, gradually making its way to the apogee, or the point in orbit where the kick stage is furthest from Earth. Once it reaches that point, the Curie engine will ignite for 2 separate burns to raise the kick stage's orbit and circularize it to 650 kilometers above the Earth's surface.
Around 1 minute after that final burn, the Kinesis satellites will be deployed in sequence. First will be a single satellite deployed off the top of the kick stage, followed by the remaining 4 satellites deployed in pairs from opposite sides. So while we wait for that, enjoy the relaxing tunes from our good friend Tim Dodd, aka the Everyday Astronaut. We'll see you back here soon.
And as always during the coast phase, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. We are at 55 minutes, 41 seconds, and counting till that set time for payload deployment. If you're just joining us, though, welcome. We have had liftoff of the 50th Electron mission, the first and second stage, both performing incredibly well, sending that kick stage into its initial orbit, and now it will coast until we have a kick stage Curie burn. The first one will be 52 minutes, 5 seconds into flight for a 40-second burn. There'll be a second ignition, 1 hour, 3 minutes, 57 seconds into flight. That's just going to be a quick, about 6-7 second burn to finalize its orbit ahead of payload deployment, 1 hour, 6 minutes, 35 seconds into flight. As always, if you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live. If you haven't yet, also make sure you subscribe so you never miss another live launch coverage. You can stay up to date on the latest launches by heading over to tlpnetwork.com/launches to see your up-to-date launch calendar. We do have another flight pending for today. That is the launch of Astra 1P SCS-24 launching on Falcon 9. It is currently scheduled for 5:35 p.m. Eastern Time from Florida, but due to weather conditions, we'll keep an eye on that and see if it will be able to fly here today. If you're interested in joining the TLP crew, consider sending in an application in the chat. We'll drop that link in sending an application via the link that we'll drop in the chat. We're looking for more people to join onto our TLP moderator team, as well as join on as TLP launch commentators and journalists with the TLP news as we bring you the latest up-to-date space news at tlpnetwork.com. Thanks for dropping that in there, Signy. It's great to have that there. Catching up on the chat and your guys' questions. There are 5 satellites on board. This is the first of 5 launches for this new constellation for Kinesis. Today's mission is No Time Toulouse is the mission name. Toast, how much do those batteries weigh? That is a very good question, and I don't know if we necessarily have that exact number. I have to double check on that. I know someone saying in the chat they believe they said 300 kilograms. That seems like a lot for just a battery when each of the satellite is only 30 kilograms. So I do not believe it's 300 kilograms. But I'll see if we can find that number. Some of that information would be restricted via ITAR as they're not able to release all of that because, then you could try to build your own rocket, which they don't like people trying to do, in their backyards. It's great having you all joining us here. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage the like button. It really does help us out. We got 53 minutes till payload deployment. We got less than that until the first burn, and hopefully we'll have live views of the burns and payload deployments here. That first burn set to begin 52 minutes into flight, so about less than 40 minutes from now. You can keep sending in your comments and questions in the chat, and we'll work on answering those as we continue to count down to payload deployment, the first of 5 of these missions with Rocket Lab. Stay with us. .
precise orbit as needed. Without getting into the nitty-gritty of orbital mechanics too much, the argument of perigee determines where on the globe the orbit is highest and where it is lowest. A little bit more complicated than that, but that's why we have an expert team here guiding the mission.
Curie engine cutoff confirmed.
There we go. That's engine shutdown of the Curie engine on the kick stage. Up next is payload deployment for the first 5 of Kinesi's planned 25 satellite constellation. Each of the satellites is a 16U platform, so somewhere between the size of a toaster and a microwave, we think, and weighs around 30 kilograms, making the total payload mass of today's Electron launch around 150 kilograms. And with that Curie milestone out of the way, Muriel is joined by a pivotal team member in the development of that small but mighty engine. Let's join Muriel in mission control with Simon Moffat. Muriel?
With Simon Moffat, who has played a key part in our Curie engine on the kick stage. But I will let him introduce himself to you and tell us a bit more about the role that he has here at RocketLab. Simon?
Hi, Muriel. Thanks for having me. I'm Simon Moffat. I'm the manager of spacecraft propulsion and physics here at RocketLab.
And you have been part of the company for a very long time now.
Yeah.
How long have you been here?
It's been 8 years now, yeah. And I was an intern before that, so coming up on almost 10 years since I first started the company.
I wonder what 10 years in RocketLab years really is.
It's a long time.
Now, you brought a special treat for us today. Can we hold this up for the camera to see it? And can you please describe to me what this is?
Yeah, so this is the Curie engine. This is the thrust chamber for the Curie. Normally on Electron, Curie has a bit more going on. There's tanks and valves and a few other things, but this is just the thrust chamber.
Just by size comparison to the Rutherford, it is quite a small rocket engine.
It is a lot smaller. Definitely doesn't pack quite the same punch, but it's quite a precise instrument. Gets us into a very accurate orbit for the payloads.
Is there anything special about this engine in particular? Any sort of nice ways of commemorating it that you have that you might want to tell us about? Leading question there, but
yeah. So I mean, both of our engines are named after great scientists, and Marie Curie is quite an inspiration for us. She was an amazing woman, amazing scientist, and on the chamber here, you won't be able to see it in the camera, but it's printed in every chamber. A quote from her, which is, "The way of progress was neither swift nor easy," and that reminds us that even someone who could win 2 Nobel Prizes didn't find everything easy, didn't get everything done quickly, so makes us feel a little bit better when things take a bit longer.
Kindred spirits, perhaps.
Absolutely.
Is that printed on every rocket? A rocket engine, pardon me?
Yeah, that's right, on every Curie engine.
Wow, very cool. Speaking of printed, Curie is a 3D printed engine as well, is that correct?
Yeah, both Rutherford and Curie are 3D printed. Makes it a lot easier to make the complicated geometry of the chamber.
Can you describe which parts are 3D printed for me, without giving our secrets away, of course?
Yeah, absolutely. So the thrust chamber and nozzle are, and then some of the pieces in here are as well.
Very nice. Now, Simon, congratulations on launch day, of course, launch 50 for you today. How did that feel, watching that from outside of mission control?
It felt amazing. It's a little bit different than Flight 1. I think in Flight 1 we had a lot less visuals on what was going on, a lot less idea of what was going to happen. And definitely we have a lot better understanding of kind of how things are supposed to go, and obviously we're seeing things happen the way they should.
Now, you touched on it a little bit beforehand, but you've been here since you were an intern, and you've played a pivotal role in helping to develop not only Electron, but Curie itself. What other projects have you moved on to? How else have you grown during your time at the company?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate, actually, to get to do all kinds of different things at RocketLab. I even, at one point, did a secondment to the avionics team and worked on the flight termination system. But more recently, moving from the Curie engine and Electron, it's a very obvious progression into our space systems team and the propulsion products for our spacecraft. So more recently, I worked on the Hypercurie engine, and then after that, we've moved over to the Escapade mission, which is a NASA science mission headed to Mars soon.
Amazing stuff. Can you describe to me a bit about what the Hypercurie is for those who don't know?
So the Hypercurie is kind of the upsized version of Curie, hence the hyper in the name. It's a hypergolic electrically pumped engine, very high performance. That's what got us, got the capstone payload around the moon. And so, yeah, it was a long development program, very hard slog for many people, getting through that. Many new things developed that just haven't really been done before, especially not flown in space. So it was a really rewarding program to work on, and very cool engine to have developed.
Did you ever think you were going to help develop a rocket engine that would go to the moon for NASA?
Oh, absolutely not, but I feel so fortunate that I've been able to.
Wonderful. Now, you talked a little bit about Escapade as well. Can you describe the work that you're doing with that program?
Yeah, so the team was working on the propulsion system for the Escapade spacecraft. So there's actually two spacecrafts, so we have to build two propulsion systems. It's a little bit of a new type of system for us. I won't go into any of the specific details, but it's been a very interesting challenge, and we're very excited to see that lift off when it does.
That's going to be an exciting mission when it does launch, right?
Absolutely, very exciting.
Now, are we recruiting for anybody to help join you to get Escapade to Mars or any of the other missions that we're working on?
I appreciate you asking. Yes, we have several open roles right now in the propulsion team on space systems and the rest of space systems, looking for senior engineers and team lead, both in chemical propulsion and in electric propulsion. So, yeah, please take a look at the website.
And now, folks, you know who to ask for an interview. So thank you so much, Simon, for joining me. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much, Maria.
Kinesis 1 deployment confirmed.
There it is, deployment of Kinesis 1. The first satellite of the Kinesis constellation is now at home. Up next will be Kinesis 2 and 4, followed by Kinesis 3 and 5.
Kinesis 2 and Kinesis 4 deployment confirmed.
Swift maneuver there, and Kinesis 2 and 4 are safely in their home in orbit. We're now awaiting confirmation of the final 2 spacecraft to join their colleagues, starting off the Kinesis IoT constellation.
Kinesis 3 and Kinesis 5 deployments confirmed.
Mission success for No Time Toulouse, our 50th Electron launch. Welcome to Orbit Kinesis. Today's launch was the first of 5 dedicated launches for the team at Kinesis, so we can't wait to do it again soon. Congratulations to each and every person behind this launch and the 49 Electrons that came before it. Making space once is a monumental achievement, so doing it another 50 times is faster than any other commercially developed rocket in history, puts us in verified air. Now, last but not least, thank you to all of our mission partners who have flown on Electron. You have helped us to make history and create better access to space for small satellites. We are honored you chose Electron as your ride to space, and we can't wait to do it again for the next 50 launches and beyond. Now, while we're celebrating 50 launches today, we won't be pausing for long. In fact, we'll be back again soon with the next Electron on the pad. So stay tuned to our social media channels for mission updates on the next mission. But for now, we will wrap up today's broadcast and see you back here soon. Thank you for joining us, and for the 50th time, this is Rocket Lab Mission Control, signing off.
And there you go, the 50th Electron mission officially complete, mission success. All 5 satellites deployed. A huge congratulations to the entire Rocket Lab team and Sir Peter Beck on making this incredible milestone. The first company to reach it as quickly as they have, and no real competitors coming up behind them to try to beat this new record. 7 years to 50 launches since the first flight. They had a couple failures in there, so they have had to pause at times to learn, and they have made it to this 50th flight, having used those learns to make an incredibly reliable launch vehicle. Of course, we'll be bringing you all Electron rocket launch coverages live, so make sure you hit that subscribe button. That's going to do it for us from our TOP Canada studio. We'll be back in possibly a couple of hours, depending how the weather holds down on the Space Coast in Florida, for the launch of Astra 1P SES-24. But we hope to see you next time, because space is better together. Goodbye.